Yes, I did it. I killed Yvette. I hated her so much. It flames on the side of my face.
Now I have a machine gun.
Ho, ho, ho.
So what's your name, Icy?
Stuntman Mike.
Stuntman Mike's your name.
You ask anybody.
Hey, Warren. Who is this guy?
Stuntman Mike.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
We are the knights who say... Neat.
No, not the knights who say neat.
The same.
Take this thing out of the case and stick it up your nose. Don't worry, it's self-guiding.
Bill, I know you don't want to be here forever. You know, I got things I want to do in my life.
Wayne, you got red on you.
Statistical fact, cops will never pull over a man with a huge bomb in his car. Why? They fear this man. They know he sees farther than they, and he will bind them with ancient logics.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the GoodTrash GenreCast. We take movies that have no business being analyzed in an academic way, and we do it anyway. And this week's film is The Interview, and it caused some controversy. And
just a smidge.
I would say
There's a little bit.
People who don't even like movies have heard of this movie.
Yes,
true.
And so it's got some waves. It made some waves, and so we're going to talk about that and provide some analysis. But before we do that, we need to begin with some introductions of the disembodied voices that you're hearing across the table, if you would, sir.
My name is Dalton Stewart, and I assure you that I do not have stank dick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stewart. Across the table at the head, if you would, ma'am.
My name's Alexander Bohannon, and this is 2014. Women are smart now.
As of now. Thank you very much. To my left, sir, if you would.
I am Arthur Gordon, and let's just say I'm going to give him a little something extra with my hand.
My name is Dustin Sells, and you want to know what's more destructive than a nuclear bomb? Words and podcasts. And so I'm very, very happy.
It's a dog. It's a big dog. It's like a orange and black stripy dog.
There are good lines. There are moments in this movie that you might laugh aloud. But we are going to now give our quick thumbs up, thumbs down review. Dear listener, we need to warn you, though. This ain't no review show. It's an analysis show. And that means that we will be spoiling all the spoilerific spoilerages in which the Eagles finally come and rescue Sam and Frodo at the end of this film. But we'll get to more of that.
Accurate.
Later. Mm-hmm. And so we will be doing the spoilage then, but up until that point, you are in a spoiler-free zone. Let's start with a synopsis from the voice of the cinema, and then we'll go into those quick reviews. If you would, sir.
Dave Skylark and producer Aaron Rappaport run the celebrity tabloid show Skylark Tonight when they land an interview with a surprise fan, North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. They are recruited by the CIA to turn their trip to Pyongyang into an assassination mission.
It's a really long plot summary.
I think
that was the longest plot summary.
Written by Sony Pictures Entertainment.
That is probably the longest synopsis we've ever done on the show.
Yeah, it's like 3 sentences.
I mean, that is the whole plot, though, so...
Yeah, pretty much.
The entirety thereof. So there you go. Now you know what happens in the movie. Now you're going to know what we think about the movie. Miss Alexander Bohannon, what do you say?
It was a adult comedy. I mean, that's kind of the thing you got to keep in mind. Like, this is geared towards adults, and there's going to be jokes in there that are going to be considered adult humor, and I'm putting that in kind of capitalized, bold, underlined, and with, like, they know it's adult humor, and so it's really kind of forced on us. Like, lots of dick gags, lots of dick jokes, lots of vag jokes. Like, we get all the full body part treatment pretty much. I'd say some of the funnier parts of the movie were not related to body parts at all, which is like the Eminem bit at the very beginning.
Holy shit.
Brilliant.
That is...
Welcome to the Slim Shady Mecca, Rebecca. It's the village in New York, right next to the Tribeca. That's my sector, homosexual dissector. Come again, rewind selector. I said nice rectum. I had a bisectomy, Hector. So you can't get pregnant if I bisexually wreck ya. Hannibal Lecter in the guy sex, and I bet I 10 explosion. In less than 5 seconds, I get ya.
Hey, oh my God. Here's a round of applause for Marshall Mathers because that is so funny. So funny. Great cameo. And I'm going to spoil that moment right now. Eminem, like, announcing he's gay on national television is probably the funniest thing that he has ever done. And man, and Franco's reaction, like in the way they're reacting in the sound booth, and then Ben Schwartz. Oh my God, that's probably. I'm with you, Alex. I think that might be the funniest moment of the whole film.
It is funny. All the rest of the stuff that's funny that Alex is talking about, this sort of adult humor, is really more adolescent humor.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like, I mean, that's the kind of thing with those
adult
movies.
in quotes,
like
yeah.
adult in quotes, exactly. Like I remember in high school seeing Knocked Up. Of course, I was a lot more sheltered then, but I also remember being similarly aghast and like, and I'm like reluctantly laughing at some of these jokes that are conveyed. Otherwise, the plot is a comic plot, so they're not really relying a lot on the strength and feasibility of some plot elements. Some of the stuff I had to call into question about the preparedness of these supposed CIA intelligence agents to carry out some missions. But overall, I mean, it's a good comedy, but I know there are better ones in Franco's repertoire for sure. So I would give this 3 ricin handshaking strips out of 5.
Very good, very good. Thank you very much, Miss Bohannon. Mr. Dalton Stewart, what say you?
I'm kind of with Alex. I mean, yeah, it's fine. Franco really feels off in this to me.
Yes, very forced.
And I like Franco a lot, but yeah, he just seems off his game, and I don't really know what it is exactly. Rogan here as the straight man's kind of great, because that's not usually a role he gets to play. He usually is the big, loud one. And him as the straight man in this film, I really enjoyed. I thought he was really, really funny. Randall Park, holy shit, is a revelation in this movie. I mean, he is so funny and humanizes a very unlikable person in real life, and really does a good job of humanizing him. And yeah, he's funny, his delivery's good, his timing's good. But really, I think the most important thing about Randall Park's role in this is he does a good job of making it believable that Franco would find himself really kind of enamored with Kim Jong-un. So Randall Park's revelation in this, Lizzie Kaplan is totally wasted. Doesn't really get much to do. She has a couple of really funny moments at the beginning, and then is just kind of, cast aside, which is a real bummer for me. I'm a big fan of Lizzie Kaplan, so that kind of was a shame. But I'm with everybody here. Dustin hasn't given a formal.
But I've read his letterbox rating on it.
Well, I mean, just as you were talking, he was talking, and I'm kind of with both of you guys. It is, I don't know, this thing doesn't normally rub me the wrong way. Like, I liked Neighbors, I like This Is the End, I like, a very adolescently graphic comedy.
Step Brothers.
Yeah, and for some reason, this just didn't do it for me. It's fine. It's funny. I laughed a lot. But I don't, have the urge to rewatch this like I do other, there are other comedies from this team that I would watch right now, and I don't really think I would watch The Interview right now, and I don't really know why. I might need to revisit it at a later date, but yeah, it's something about it just kind of holds me at arm's length, and yeah. So I give it 6 anally smuggled drone deliveries out of a possible 12.
Oh, man. The sympathy pains.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dalton Stewart. Mr. Arthur Gordon, what are your quick thoughts on the film?
I'm probably just going to echo everybody else at the table so far. I thought it was fun. It's a good group movie. It's a good party movie.
Yeah,
hanging out.
Group watch, that was what happened with this and us, and that made it probably even more enjoyable.
Yeah, and so there's something to be done there, I think. And so if you're looking for something just to turn on, it's good, I think. I may revisit it once just for because my wife wanted to see it, so I'll probably revisit it just for that. But this isn't a movie or a comedy that I'd go off on my own to watch again, I don't think. And it is very adolescent with that adult, quote-unquote, adult humor. And I do think that they presented a lot better than Seth MacFarlane's A Million Ways to Die in the West from earlier in this year. And so I think there's something to be said with that. But Dalton is also correct because there were better adult comedies out this year with Neighbors and 22 Jump Street, starring Seth Rogen. So, yeah, I would say, let's say 4 orange black striped dogs out of 7.5.
Very, very good. What I would want to say is this. One of my rules for comedies is that if I laugh 6 times, then it's funny enough. And by watching it in the communal watching, I think I laughed a lot more than I would have if I were watching it by myself.
I was watching Dustin's cringe face while he was giggling, but his cringy face, it was hilarious to watch him watch the movie.
Yeah, and so I don't know that I think I probably would have laughed some, but I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have laughed 6 times out loud, I think, watching the movie on my own. And so I'm more inclined to say that it probably doesn't really work on that level as a result of that. And so I'm kind of disinclined to say a lot of good things about it. It is a lot of fun. It is interesting. And I guess there is sort of the satirical edge to it that's politically interesting. You know, the assassination of Kim Jong-un and whatnot. And of course, the intrigue that surrounds the film makes it more interesting than probably what it actually is. It's the same thing that you could say about other films that were banned or protested or, you know, those sort of things. That sort of that hoopla that surrounds it.
Well, I mean, yeah, one of my first thoughts when we were approaching being done with watching the film together was, this is it?
Yeah.
What's everybody so mad about? Yeah, it's not a big a deal.
Yeah.
So I give the movie probably, I don't know, 3 Kim Jong-un filled helicopters exploding out of a possible 12.
Isn't that spoilery?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that was leaked all over the internet. So.
Oh, I didn't hear that one.
If you actually care about spoilers for the interview.
I figured that, I always just went into it assuming, considering the movie as an assassination plot, that he's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
But
there you go. Well, dear listener, if you haven't guessed, we're in a spoiler territory now, and we are moving right along into our analysis. This is what we're here to do. And so thank you for those quick reviews. Let's bring about some analysis at this point. Mr. Dalton Stewart, what say you?
You know, I actually think there is quite a bit going on in this film, really. And one of the things that I kind of keyed in on was this idea that the world is much more complicated than we want to give it credit for. Life is more simpler when we can draw very clear... I'll back up, yeah.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Collapsed.
I can't tell if it actually picked it up or not.
Yeah, do it again.
You know, life is much simpler when we can draw very clearly delineated lines of good and evil, and we can say, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, this is what's right, and this is what's wrong. And a lot of the time, politically, we look to North Korea as, well, that's the bad one. That's the bad one.
Axis of evil.
They're pure crazy, and they cannot be reasoned with. And what I think the interview does a really good job of is humanizing Kim Jong-un and saying, he's not a monster. He's just a really damaged person with a lot of daddy issues and is just still trying to convince his father to love him. And I think that's really valuable to do. It's so funny to me to watch this film. And when we were watching it, I kept thinking about this was, there's really something going on with his character arc. And it was kind of moving more than once for me. Was the character arc of Kim Jong-un and like diving into his psyche and him and not Dave Franco, although Dave Franco's great too. James Franco and his, you know, kind of their bonding and then the falling out that they have. It's almost like the structure that all buddy pairing movies have, and him and James Franco, or him and Seth Rogen's characters have this, you know, oh, we're such great friends, and then they have a falling out and they get back together. And he almost has that with Kim Jong-un as well. There's like a parallel friendship arc happening along with the one he has with Seth Rogen. But I say all that to say this. What the interview does is valuable because it forces us to recognize that sometimes the world is a lot more complicated than we want it to be. You know, it's easier to think that Kim Jong-un's just a bastard and he's just starving his own people out and he's just a crazy person. The more hard thing to do, and probably the thing that's might be a little bit more close to the truth, is that he really has a lot of severe emotional issues, and got put in charge of a country when he was, you know, in his early 30s, and was just like, okay, here you go, it's all yours.
Yeah. Not that the other things aren't true, but they're true and
exactly.
Right.
Well, and that's the other thing the interview does is it does say, hey, we know this is a comedy, but these people really are starving to death.
Yeah.
And they really are, you know, being herded into, you know, quasi-concentration camps. So, you know, maybe watch a documentary about North Korea after you watch this. But enjoy the interview, kids. I did, and I actually think there's something there. I also think there's something there about nonviolence as that should be your first resort. And I also think there's something there about the flexibility of journalistic integrity. So enjoy that film, kids.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dalton Stewart. Miss Alexandra Bohannon, what analysis bring you?
Quick comment. After I've talked to a couple of different friends that have watched the interview and then learned about, more of the plight about North Korea, because I don't know if a lot of Americans really think about those oppressed peoples.
Nope.
And they're like, oh my God, I had to go and watch all these documentaries about North Korea. And these are people I wouldn't expect to hear this from. So it's just, it is an interesting tool and an interesting force for good. I think before on the show we've discussed like the power of film and as a critiquing a tool to critique. And didn't someone say that they South Korea sent a bunch of copies of these over the border, just airdrop them in?
That's Flash drives and DVDs, just
hilarious.
Airdrop them all over North Korea, apparently.
And that's pretty important. I think it's interesting to see that that's what happened in the end of the movie, humanizing this man, and that's such a kind of the humanizing thing. Well,
you're telling me my man doesn't pee or poop?
Humanizing him to the people, and that's kind of what they did in real life. It's kind of a meta thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not my analysis. My analysis is an interesting comparison between the plot of this film and typically American foreign policy. Because, okay, here's the plot of the film, and apply this to pretty much any conflict we've ever entered into, military forces being involved. A threat is made to America or an ally. We then kind of construct some interesting plot to solve the problem, but things get really, really, really cocked up very, very quickly. And then the way we end it is basically using the nuclear option. And that's kind of, I think that's American foreign policy in a nutshell. We're not necessarily invited to the party. We invite ourselves along because we need to fix a problem that we perceive is there. There is a problem, you know, Hitler and whatever perceived other threats we've gotten from other countries.
Well, World War I's a better example because it's a little bit more gray. And we're just like, hey, we know it's almost over.
The
but,
Lusitania.
We may or may not have had a boat blow up.
Civilian boat.
Yeah. Can we come?
Yeah, and we join the party, and we like to get involved, and maybe our plots are subtle, and maybe they're not. I think a good example of this happening is definitely the weapons of mass destruction. We just like to use any excuse to get involved, and then we get involved, and then we just mess everything up for 10, 20 years. And it's an interesting critique that this film ends happily. You know, there's the whole thing, the CIA's original plot was, okay, the handshake and the strip, but that one North Korean, a female official whose name escapes me, she said, well, they would just replace him with another individual just like him.
Just like him, yeah.
The thing you need to do is start a revolution. And so that it does occur after you humanize Kim Jong-un. But the thing is, I don't think American policy does that, though. It's like we get rid of these dictators, you know, we think we save the day, which is usually like our favorite thing, call to arms. But then, you know, what actually gets solved besides a huge loss of human life and the problem, the underlying root cause of the issue, you know, the suppression of these peoples isn't ever actually addressed and helped or solved. We just think that just because we shoot a rocket launcher at a helicopter, we're going to solve everyone's problems. Yeah. And in a movie, fictionalized, it may, but in real life, it doesn't.
Excellent. I really like that reading a lot, Alex.
Have you ever felt like a plastic bag?
Yes.
I love Turtle's story about...
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I always kept thinking, you know, I know it's a Katy Perry song, but I always go right to movies.
American Beauty. Yeah, me too.
Let's see the most beautiful thing ever.
Yeah.
You know, so funny. So I want to offer two bits of reading that are completely unrelated. The first being sort of the Room 237 reading, but it actually is there and intentionally there, and it's a little bit of adaptation theory, because the interview is fully James Franco's adaptation of Lord of the Rings, the entire trilogy.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's over the top. You know, he's easily making... references throughout, you know, you come with me to Mordor, you know, and those sort of things that, you know, referring to going to North Korea.
Northeast.
obviously Kim Jong-un is something of a Sauron
the
character.
Sam to my Frodo.
Yeah.
That.
And
they bring it up several times.
But there's these other little pieces that are a little more subtle. And I would mention, sort of the middle piece that is sort of subtle and sort of not subtle is the gnawing off of fingers that happens during a final battle.
About 3 times.
Once you're thinking,
so many fingers.
It must be Lord of the Rings, then it's kind of obvious. But if you don't happen to have that particular thought clicking in your mind, you may or may not nail that
And
one.
then Franco even says, "You are Frodo," so they fully call out the finger biting.
Yeah, so it's there. But there is this idea of Frodo don't use the ring. In this case, the ring being the strip. That you've got to keep it secret, you've got to keep it safe, and you've got to keep it away from, obviously, the orc guards of Mordor, who are the 2 guys who are been watching Kim Jong-un since he was young. And, of course, they go very badly because they mistake it for chewing gum, and which is funny and hilarious. But it is definitely this thing, and it's wholly evil, and it's wholly corrupting, and it's not something that we should be jumping on. And I think there is sort of this commentary on violence, which I may mention here again before we get much further into the analysis. There's also this moment of realization for James Franco's character when he recognizes finally that Kim Jong-un has been lying to him.
He's been honey-dicking him.
He's been pulling the Smeagol thing, saying he's on his side, but really he's not, saying that things are better than they are, and they're really not. And there's this moment where he's crushing these oranges, and the dust from the oranges are coming, and I think of Sam realizing that the Lembas had been thrown away by Smeagol the whole time, and that this is the evidence he finally needed to realize that his master's been betrayed, and I need to go back into Mordor, and I need to fight Shelob, and so he sort of finds his courage again, and because the Frodo character really is mostly Seth Rogen's character throughout. And so that's going on. And finally, James Franco again is shot by Kim Jong-un. And there's a whole story that early on in the movie where they do sort of the Total Recall thing, where the implanted doctor tells exactly everything that's going to happen. That's exactly what happens when James Franco sort of makes up this possible scheme that would work better.
And then it happens.
And it absolutely happens. It's all ridiculous. There's no way it would all work. But he secretly has on a bulletproof vest, which is mithril, right?
Doesn't he say Does he say mithril? Or did we just all say it?
I think I screamed mithril. I don't know if he said it or not.
Okay, because
we all said it. Yeah,
we were all dying.
I thought he might have. Anyway.
But yeah, there's more to this Hobbit than what meets the eye, right? And so we have all of these sort of bits of adaptation working on, and it's not really lazy screenwriting to do that, but there is a way that you can structure a story based on other stories, whether you directly reference them or not. I think particularly of the Star Trek reboot, which is in many ways an adaptation of Star Wars: A New Hope, which is part of the reason why J.J. Abrams got the helm of the new Star Wars Episode 8 or Episode 7 that's coming out very, very soon. And
guys, it's coming out in less than 365 days.
Good times will be had by all. And there's very much Luke looking on the 2 sons of Tatooine moments and all of that sort of stuff that's going on. There's very much Obi-Wan Kenobi moments and all of this throughout the story. And so he much more loosely he is adapting the same sort of structure and frameworking. Again, to think of the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring and the plot structure of The Hobbit, the very first story, An Unexpected Journey, is an unexpected length of journey, is almost identical. You have the same sort of points where you hit Rivendell, the same points when you go into the mountains, the same points when you come back out of the mountains, a great tragedy and a suffering, and sort of then this sort of re-embrace and recommitment to the mission that happens at the end, which is, that moment when Aragorn says we're going to hunt some orc, and when Thorin says I've never been more wrong. They're both the same moment. And so you can sort of see how stories can make use of other stories and other structures. In this case, it's the same screenwriter doing this. But it sort of shows the versatility. It sort of shows the robustness of a good story structure, and that you can sort of implant it to any time, any place, similar characters, dissimilar characters, similar genres, or do something altogether different with it. And by so doing, you could actually encounter a film that's really interesting and a lot of fun, and something that's pretty quite exciting. So that's the first thing I want to say regarding all of that. The next thing I want to say is sort of this commentary on violence and Frodo don't wear the ring. And as Alex mentioned, as Dalton mentioned already, there is something going on in this film in which it is saying that violence is not going to be the answer, that revolution really is the answer, that you're going to have to do something. We're going to change the hearts and minds of people. So what you get is more of the same if you assassinate these characters. You're not going to actually get any way out of it. And so so what you've got to do is something a lot more difficult. What you've got to do is something a lot more challenging, which is organize together as human beings and say, we're not going to have this any longer. We want something different. We're going to have to take the role of the situation that's in Paris, France in 1968 and say, we're going to have to all be reasonable and demand the impossible and do something about this. Thank you, dear co-host, for that excellent bit of reading on this not-so-excellent film. We must make our final verdict now. Now we must choose Shelf or Trash, else or instead. I ask you first, Mr. Arthur Gordon, what say you?
Stream it with friends.
It's on Netflix already.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. So
good timing, actually. Dropped like yesterday.
Yeah, so go check it out and listen to this episode. That's what we do. I would say either instead or else buddy comedies. All of them. I'd say Pineapple Express would go well here. I think it works a lot better here. Go back and watch 22 Jump Street from earlier in 2014 as well. I think that pairs well. I would also say, I don't know, all the buddy comedies. I don't really know. This is just an adult comedy, so anything in that vein. I think watch Wolf of Wall Street with this.
What?
That's hilarious because I just started watching Wolf of Wall Street and Heath and I realized it was 3 hours and we're like, okay, we're going to have to break this into 2 parts.
The best 3 hours of your life.
How did you not know it was 3 hours?
Run with me, Jordy.
I don't know.
Run with me.
We were just trying to pick a date movie and it's like, oh yeah, we want to do Wolf of Wall Street. Anyway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arthur Gordon. Mr. Dalton Stewart, what say you, Shelf or Trash, else or instead?
Shelf. Because I'm not going to let a totalitarian dictatorship tell me what the fuck I can and can't watch. This is the most American thing you can do is watch the interview. Regardless of whether or not you like it, it is your civic duty to watch this film because somebody other than an American told you you can't. And if anybody's going to censor us, it's going to be ourselves. Damn it.
So Dalton is suggesting if this is not a film that you would like, go ahead and buy it, keep it in the cellophane, and just put it on the shelf.
Exactly.
Just to prove a point.
You're damn right. We will not be silenced. We will not go quietly into that good night.
Justice will be served and the battle will rage. This big dog will fight when you rattle his cage. And you'll be sorry that you mess with the U.S. of A. 'Cause we'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way.
So what else should we watch, Dalton?
This is the end because it's a lot funnier. It's infinitely better, actually. And it has, a lot of the same cast. Do that. It's way better. And, just came out like a year or two ago. I mean, they literally finished This Is the End and started working on the interview. And I guess maybe they used all of their good juice on This Is the End because there's just something not quite there for the interview, and it's kind of a bummer. And I don't know what it is. Also, you should watch Inglourious Bastards because that's another fictional telling of...
That is a great suggestion.
Yeah, watch another fictional assassination of a real person.
Very good, very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Dalton Stewart. Miss Alexandra Bohannon, Shelf or Trash, else or instead?
Man, I feel like not a patriot if I can't shelf it after that critique, but I would say put it on your digital shelf. So, I mean, there's plenty of ways to watch it online. I don't know if it's necessary to buy a copy of it because, I mean, it is everywhere. It's probably going to live on Netflix for the rest of time. So if you don't like dropping cash on physical hard copies, just stream it. But if you're a collection guy, and I think I'm at the table with mostly collection.
No, you guys have been to my apartment.
I'm the collector.
You're the collector. Okay. I know you. There are some
things,
people that like have the thing for like, I must have this hard copy.
My apartment
if you're
looks
one of
like
those
it might
people,
belong to a serial killer.
As we saw okay, sorry. Anyway, that was spoilers for... Okay, if you are someone that likes to own movies, own it. If you want to just watch it, stream it. Okay. So my else's would, gosh, you guys stole all the good ones. Pineapple Express was the first thing that came to my mind because we again have Rogan playing more of a straight man, Franco playing the funny man. Franco is much funnier in that movie, and Rogan has a comparable performance in each, but I think that just that movie is in general better. Let's see, 22 Jump Street. Yeah, that's another good one in terms of adult, quote, adult comedies. And gosh, I'm drawing a blank on any more. I mean, you guys, those are really good suggestions. Inglourious Bastards, definitely. Any of those buddy cop dramas, political comedies.
Very good, very good. Thank you very much, Miss Alexander Bohannon. What I am going to say is trash. Regardless of what Mr. Stewart has said, and that it is an empty gesture that will serve no purpose other than helping lining the pockets of Sony Pictures, which has no political engagement whatsoever. And so it's an empty political act, and therefore unhelpful and unnecessary. So trash the movie. It's not worth your time. It's not funny. See something else funnier. And then also watch the 2013 Best Documentary nominee, The Square, and think about what would be motivated and active in your life in a way that actually might change things, that would make things better and make things different, and take back the power. Our governments should not be afraid. People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their citizens. And the Square acts out that bit of statement from V for Vendetta in a way that I think is powerful and more effective. You have anything to say, sir?
Un-American.
Okay, fine. I'll take that. It's not the first time I've been accused of that. So, thank you very much, dear co-host.
Why do you hate our freedom, Dustin?
I like freedom. In fact, that's the point.
He's going to try and take our guns next.
He can have those.
Obama can't take my guns.
What I'm going to
I have a friend with a shirt that says it on it.
What I'm going to suggest is letting Sony take your money doesn't make you more free.
No, it definitely doesn't. But you should show Sony that they were a bunch of pussies for not putting this movie out there anyway. And they finally did, but in very, very, very limited form.
Again, I don't think it makes anybody more free. Moving right along, we are going to now get some opportunity for you to think and say what you want to think about what we've said so far and give us feedback via those magical means of social media that we all know. Mr. Arthur Gordon, do you know anything about that stuff?
First and foremost, you could email us, goodtrashgenrecast@gmail.com. Hit us up and send us some emails. Don't send any spam, though, because we don't want that nonsense. Also, you can check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/GoodTrashGenreCast. One word. We have no feedback coming in. We had some likes, some things like that, shares, but no dialogue, which is disheartening. So please talk to us because we're very, very lonely in our cave.
We're needy. We need you, just like that clingy girlfriend that you may or may not have dated. We just need you. Talk to us. Talk to me, please. Save me.
Wow, you did that entirely too well, Alex. It's a little disturbing. Thank you very much, both of you. Mr. Dalton Stewart, do you know anything else about social media means by which a conversation might be held?
Our beloved leader is wise. He's gentle, kind, and strong. We wish him joy, we wish him peace, we wish him love. And the one thing in our time we wish more than this is for Dustin to explode in a ball of fiery hell. May Dustin be forced to starve and beg and ravaged by disease. May Dustin be helpless, poor, and sad and cold. He is arrogant and fat. He is stupid. He is evil. May he drown in his own blood and feces. Die, Dustin, die. Oh, please, won't you die? It would fill my tiny heart with joy. Ladies and gentlemen, you can find the Good Trash GenreCast on Twitter at good_trash.
Do we have any feedback coming in from the Twitter, Mr. Dalton Stewart?
We do, actually. As you may or may not remember, last week before last, I asked listeners to say, hey, what are some marathons you want? What are some movies you'd like for us to watch? We got a suggestion from Brigham Cole, and I believe he mentioned that he had suggested this before, but I don't remember. But he is once again saying we should do a month of musical movies or musically themed movies, such as Pink Floyd's The Wall, Sweeney Todd, and Across the Universe. Yeah, maybe.
Someday.
Yeah, I don't really like musicals, but I actually kind of like that idea.
Those are in the queue behind Tucker and Dale versus Evil, so we'll get to it
eventually.
So yeah, that's how effective that promise.
We'll get to it tomorrow.
We also, because we are going to be doing a top 5 of 2014 this week, since we closed out this month of movies we had never seen with a 2014 release. We do what we do at the end of every January and give you our top picks for our favorite films from the preceding year. So 2 of our former co-hosts wrote into me what their top 5 for the year was. So first, we're going to hear from Nick Sanford, friend and filmmaker, with his top 5 films of 2014. And those were Wild, Nightcrawler, Inherent Vice, Godzilla, and Interstellar.
Excellent.
I'm assuming in 5 to 1.
5 to 1, yes. He also gave shout-outs to Boyhood and Obvious Child.
Excellent. And we also have Miss Thurkelson's?
We also have Miss Thurkelson's, and Miss Thurkelson's are number 5, Sin City 2, A Dame to Kill For. I'm pretty sure she's the only one in the world with that on her top 5 list, but, interesting pick.
Quentin Tarantino may surprise you. He's always got oddball.
That's true.
That's true.
Number 4, Adam Wingard's The Guest, which I talked about a few weeks ago on the show and is an honorable mention for me. It very nearly made it into my top picks for the year. Number 3 was Catching Fire Part 2. Number 2 was Nightcrawler. And number 1 was Gone Girl. So those are Kirsten Thurkelson's top 5 picks for 2014.
Excellent. I do want to mention one other thing coming in feedback-wise. Of course, you can leave us feedback at iTunes, Stitcher, and also the Podbean site, regular and proper. But we did have an iTunes review that was amended, and someone said something about our sound qualities not being so great when we're using sort of an ambient room mic, which we have used recently because of Mr. Arthur Gordon's absence. But the Giant Squid writes, after a 5-star review, "Guys, I have to edit my old review. Listening now that you record with what I assume is fantastic equipment makes the experience of listening to this podcast 110% wonderful. Please keep doing what you're doing."
Thanks, Giant Squid. It is Matt. What was the adjective that the Giant Squid used?
It is what?
To describe our equipment?
It is fantastic.
Yes, it is fantastic. And stolen.
Yes, both of those things. And actually, the stolenness is part of what increases its fantastic
We've got
nature.
a hot mic. It's a hot mic.
Literally.
Get it?
Double entendre.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Well, guys, it is time to play the game.
It's time to play the game. Time to play the game.
The game, as you all know, has already been announced because we're going to be playing this game of naming our top 5 films of the year.
That's right. Top 5 films of the year. Brought to you by The Interview. The Interview. Probably not on anyone's top 5.
This is why it's not brought to you by The Interview.
Well,
because
close enough.
It didn't bring us to any of the top 5s.
Yeah, but we were like, we need to do a 2014 movie so we can do our top 5 of 2014, and this was a good pick.
The one that did the thing. So there you go. We're going to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 order of our top 5 films of 2014. So we begin with our number 5s. I ask you first, Mr. Arthur Gordon, what's the number 5 film of the year?
Well, I am going to defend Mr. Kevin Smith. I'm going to say Tusk at my number 5. Now, Tusk was pretty generally critically panned. However, I think there was something very bizarre and beautiful and strange going on, and I think it's a very interesting film. Certainly very different from other stuff he's done, but I enjoy it, and I think it's just a unique page in his oeuvre of films, and I think it's I don't know, it's just, I don't even know how to describe it, but I think it's something there.
All right. Well, I haven't seen it, so I have nothing to say about Tusk. Do you have any?
No, I have not seen it, and I don't really have much interest in it, honestly.
I appreciate your recommendation, Arthur, and your loan of the DVD, and I intend to catch it very, very soon. Mr. Dalton Stewart, what's your number 5 film of 2014?
My number 5 pick is Blue Ruin, which is a little tiny film that was primarily Kickstarted. I've talked about it on the show before. I cannot more strongly recommend it. It is streaming on Netflix right now. Do yourself a favor, support independent cinema. And, it's not an indie film in the way of, Dallas Buyers Club starring Jared Leto and Matthew McConaughey is an indie film. Yeah. Just because something's made outside of the studio system, that doesn't really necessarily mean indie anymore.
Yeah.
Especially when eventually they get picked up by, the indie distribution over Paramount or whatever.
Yeah.
Blue Ruin is self-made, financed, self-distributed. I mean, it is from the ground up. An amazing first feature. Mm-hmm. I can't think of a whole. It's just, wow, it kind of blows your face off that somebody making their very first feature debut with that kind of budget made that good of a movie. Again, I don't want to tell you that much about it because I feel like a lot of the joy I had with this movie was going in fairly blind. But it's essentially, what if somebody who is not prepared to go on a quest for revenge went on a quest for revenge and subverts that revenge thriller genre throughout. And it's really good. I couldn't more highly recommend it to you.
It's a movie that I have seen, and I do like it a lot. And I would dare say it's an honorable mention for me this year. So it's a movie I like a lot.
So we're going to go to Dustin. Alex is still here. Hi, Alex.
Hey, what's up? Okay. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be real straight with you, listener. I'm a film pleb, and I'm going to own it, and I'm going to be proud of it. And
if you don't speak internet, that's plebeian.
Yeah, so I just haven't experienced enough film, and certainly enough film to make a 2014 watch list. I'm just getting caught up, I feel like, on things I should have watched when I was younger. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking everyone's watch list, and not their watch list, their rating picks for 2014, and putting them in my Letterboxd watch list so that I will get to them, because obviously I trust all of these silly men's opinions. Sorry, that sounded so
fine.
weird.
That's fine.
I trust all these guys' opinions a lot, and so I will give you some movies that I like maybe at the end. So they're my honorable mention, but not necessarily my top 5. So.
Well, thank you very much for that bit of information, Alex, and I'm sorry in advance for the movies that I may be imposing on you.
Well, Dustin, what's the first film you're going to impose on Alex?
We Are the Best, which actually brings to mind yet another of the honorable mentions of the year. This is a Swedish film. It's about a 13-year-old girl and her 13-year-old friend and her 14-year-old other friend and their desire to found a punk band. They're trying so hard to be real and authentic and legit. There is navigating some of their relationships of teenage, I liked him first, but you saw him first, and those sort of things. Cute. And also just growing up. This movie makes it the Boyhood honorable mention. Boyhood didn't make my top 5. We may be hearing about it a little bit later, but it does similar things that Boyhood is doing, except for it's not tied up in the sort of the production of it. The one character, 6 years of their life or 8 years of their life, 12 years, however long. And I find Boyhood to be a cinematic achievement, but I find it to be a less interesting reflection on adolescence and growing up than We Are the Best. I think there's something more authentic there in it. And so I really like Boyhood a lot. I'm not trying to poo-poo it at all. But I think We Are the Best is the better film of the two, even though it doesn't sort of have the cinematic achievement of 12 years and getting those actors back and those sort of things. So loved it a lot. It's streaming on Netflix. Watch it. Now, I think Netflix might say it's 2013, but the actual U.S. release theatrically was 2014. So it's a recommend from me. Well, moving right along, we'll go to number 4. Mr. Arthur Gordon, what's the number 4 film of 2014?
I've got a tie at number 4, and it is a Tom Hardy double feature. It's Locke and The Drop. One actor, 2 different characters, 2 very different performances, 2 very good movies, especially Locke, which just it takes a certain kind of actor and director to make a one-room, one-actor film. And Locke does it very well.
That was my number 8, actually. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Locke Arthur. That performance is really quite something.
Yeah, Tom Hardy is an actor, and he is very, very good. And The Drop is also very good. It's a crime thriller. We've seen them all. But his acting and the characters that we've seen here between him and Noomi Rapace, it's a very good film. And so I'm going to put those here to check those out at number 4.
People talk about Tom Hardy's physicality, and Locke is kind of interesting because he's not really allowed to be that physical, and yet is still doing a lot of physical acting.
Yeah,
rolling up his sleeves, and he's got a cold, so wiping. Yeah, it's just and like his sleeves just keep getting rolled further and further up. It's like he's like, okay, got to dig in and work now. Man, I'm glad that was a major top 5 because it was definitely floating around in that midsection of my list for quite a while.
I hadn't seen either film, but I love me some Tom Hardy, so I am up and interested in all of that. Mr. Dalton Stewart, what's the number 4 film of 2014?
My number 4 film of 2014 is Nightcrawler. Dan Gilroy's directorial debut, one of the Gilroy brothers, who knows? But that's not why it's on here. It's on here because of Jake Gyllenhaal.
Right.
Because, man, that performance just blew my face off. There is a lot of injustices going on in the Oscar nominations, 2 of which being an actor. Well, I'll just say it. My number 7 pick, Selma, David Oyelowo's amazing, nuanced, and at times understated turn as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and also the original creation that is this weird coyote man that is Jake Gyllenhaal and Nightcrawler. Just this bug-eyed, predatory, gung-ho, American dream-loving sociopath. And that's a lot's been said about this film, what it has to say about, media and the desire for, if it bleeds, it leads. What this film is really about is this nonsense, can-do attitude of the American dream, of pull yourself by your bootstraps, and if you just have a goal and you believe in yourself, you can achieve. Well, Jake Gyllenhaal does believe in himself and does not like other people very much, and he is going to achieve at any means necessary, and it's a really, really great performance, and well shot, well edited, all of, technical things. But for me, there are better films on my list that aren't as highly ranked, because at the end of the day, I often put the film that sticks with me more highly, or the film that I think is more important. And Nightcrawler I couldn't shake. It just heaved me out. It was just jeebies. Ugh. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Days after watching it and thinking about Gyllenhaal's, just his eyes in that film. So Nightcrawler is my number 4 pick.
Dustin?
I would say this much about Nightcrawler is that it definitely was something I would consider for my top 10. It's a movie that I really liked a lot, so I like that pick a lot. For my number 4 film, and this is hard because they start getting very, very close at this point.
Same here.
And so I'm still making up my mind as we speak. But I'm going to go with Under the Skin for number 4.
An honorable mention for me.
And Scarlett Johansson's performance is amazing. Yeah. I think it's this amazing commentary on how distanced and alienated we become in society, using an alien to describe alienation.
Okay, I've heard really mixed things about this film.
Yes.
You're probably talking to dumb people, because it's not for everybody. I mean, you have to... What do we always say? It's a pro film watchers movie only?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It lends itself more to the art house style than it does the classical Hollywood style, and I think that throws people.
It's very much an art house film, yeah.
It's not going to spoon feed you. It's not going to explain everything to you.
Right. I just have heard smart people say that they didn't like this movie, and so that kind of makes me go, eh.
I mean, honestly, this is number 4 as of right now. It could have as easily been my number 1 movie of the year. I like it that much.
I don't. It's an honorable mention for me. I don't love the experience of watching it. I think it's okay, but it is very good, and I think everyone should watch it. You shouldn't just be like, "Oh, that sounds too arty for me." And yeah, pro film watchers, whatever, you should watch it because there's a lot going on, and if you like Under the Skin, I think it's going to open a lot of doors for you in terms of non-traditional films. Would you agree with that, Dustin?
Absolutely, I would. I think it's a good gateway drug into non-traditional film. It's not all that non-traditional, really, in the long run. But soundtrack is brilliant. Johansson's performance, again, is fantastic. There is a cruelty and also a kindness at both tensions being played at throughout the film. And it's worth your time. I love it.
It falls apart for me after that first half. I'm really much more interested in the first half of the film. The second half, I'm still thinking about. So, but it is definitely an honorable mention for me. I gave it very strong consideration.
Alrighty, well, let's move right along round to number 3. Mr. Arthur Gordon, what's the number 3 film of 2014?
The number 3 film on my top 5 list is Top 5.
Good pick.
Written, directed, Mr. Chris Rock. This kind of career resurgence, taking himself more serious. I think it's very reflective of his real life persona, a man who has kind of struggled with making just commercial money-making films, especially with Mr. Adam Sandler. And so for him to kind of come in with his serious auteur style of work, he does a very good job here. The cast is great. Him and Rosario Dawson are just wonderful, great chemistry. A lot of funny moments. Cedric the Entertainer, a great list of cameos and surprise appearances, and it's just a lot of fun. And I think the best way to describe this is as the Black Manhattan. And there's a lot of that same Woody Allen technique going on here, and I think Chris Rock just kind of arrives at a new level in his career here. And so that's my number 3.
It's not a film I've seen, but I want to.
It's very good.
Oh my gosh, I'm just looking at this cast, and I'm just floored.
It's a good movie. It's a really...
Top 5?
Yes, for top 5.
It's
I'm just like,
good.
no kidding, huh?
It's definitely like my top 25 if I were to expand the list that far. I liked it quite a bit. Not as much as you did, but I definitely really enjoyed it a lot.
Excellent. Well, Dalton Stewart, what's the number 3 film of 2014 in your opinion?
My number 3 is probably not surprising to anyone that it's in my top 10, is the David Fincher film Gone Girl.
I have to say...
You're causing us all trouble.
That if I had a top 5 that actually meant anything... because of the amount of few current 2014 movies I've seen, Gone Girl would be in the midst of that top 5, at least maybe 2 or 3. I don't want to give it that number 1 because I do see some flaws with it, But I did really, that was like Dalton said, the movies that stick with you, they deserve that top 5 spot. And I was thinking about that for a week after.
And that's why it is so high on this list. Is much like Nightcrawler, it invaded me in a way that I did not like.
I did not like the way it invaded me either.
And I'm just gonna read my Letterboxd review of Gone Girl. Men suck, women suck, marriage sucks, family sucks, the criminal justice system sucks, the media sucks, America sucks, and you suck. That's Gone Girl.
TLDR, yes.
That's accurate.
Yeah, it takes the satire of Fight Club, the mystery of Seven, the character building and deep themes of Zodiac and Social Network's ambiguity and deconstruction of the American dream and rolls it into one subversive package.
Yeah, Fincher taps into his inner Von Trier here.
Yeah, it is. This film does not like you at all.
No.
Yeah.
No. A lot has been made, and we've talked about this a little bit on the show, about the claims of misogyny for this film. I think it's it's not a misogynistic film, it's a misanthropic film, and makes you really think about how much can you really ever trust another person, because you only have what they're telling you to take.
Yeah, I heard that the adaptation was fairly close, except that, like, one thing that just kind of baffled me is apparently his character's name escapes me, but you know who I'm talking about. He, in the shed where all the stuff is hidden, he actually had this really sketchy, scary porn, like that he was hiding. I haven't read the novel myself, but like really like borderline like mutilative like porn, like weird stuff. So I don't know why that was chosen to be removed, because that seems like that would put an equally dark view of him too, and there's not enough on, like, it seems like it's just like taking a dump on her, which she does scary, awful things, but
I feel like what I've heard about the novel Gone Girl is there is much more of a question of whether or not Ben Affleck's character might have killed his wife, and I feel like there is that question very early in the film Gone Girl, but more than being a questionable person, he's just kind of an asshole. He's just kind of a schlubby dick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's not we never think, man, this guy's a monster. He's just kind of a piece of shit.
And we only think that of her.
Yeah, which really
Correct.
like sent my hair like hackles up in a bad way. It's like we only ever get, oh my gosh, this woman could be a psychopath about her, whereas the police are actually investigating him as a suspect, and we don't get the feel like, oh, he could have actually done that at all.
Well, I think we do, though, just not for very long.
Yeah.
Like maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, they flirt with it, but they don't court it.
Yeah. Dustin, what is your number 3 pick for 2014?
I'm going to go with a little Australian film, The Babadook.
Called it.
And, it again, easily could have been number 1. I'm saying number 3 right now. But there's a knock. It's The Babadook. Duck.
If it's in a word or it's in a look.
Yeah, and it's massively scary. It is massively sort of hesitating between the supernatural and the natural in its explanations. And it is so it's fantastic in sort of the technical sense of the fantastic, and just this woman losing her ever-loving mind while these things are going on. And it's a very interesting story about mothers and sons, about single parenting, and also about the loss of a husband.
Well, just loss in general,
and
really
how,
grief.
Yeah, and how it haunts one.
Yeah.
And so it's really good. It's not only did a woman direct the best horror film of the last year. This was said by the faculty of horror, and I totally agree. I think a woman may have directed the best horror film in the last 10 years. It is that good. I love it a lot.
Yeah, horror films are kind of taken out to be their own thing, and the thing that's really great about The Babadook is it's not just a good horror. It is a good film that happens to be frightening.
Yes.
It's a very strong film. It's probably my top 25. Have you watched it again since your initial watching? I'm assuming you have, because that's kind of who you are.
No, I have not.
Do it again. I didn't like it as much the second viewing for some reason. It was less impactful for me, and I don't know why, and I need to think about that. Because I just watched it again last night. I watched it, just saw it for the first time probably a month ago or so, and I just watched it again this last evening. And yeah, it was less impactful for me. I still like it a great deal, but I need to think about it a little bit more. But it is a very good pick, Dustin, and I like that film a great deal. The S.C. Davis, oh my God, she's amazing.
She did, yeah, great performance, yeah. Super good. Well, thank you very much, guys. Now we move on into the upper echelons. We're going now to number 2. What is the second best film of the year, Mr. Arthur Gordon, in your opinion?
I'm going to go with Gone Girl. I think it's a phenomenal film. It was a movie I was super excited to see, and I finally got around to watching it. Strong performances all around. Dalton said this movie hates you. That's fair. David Fincher probably hates you as well. I think that's valid. However, I don't know that there is a living director that can build tension and suspense as well as David Fincher, because he can take you inside a well-lit room and make it feel as claustrophobic and horrifying as a dungeon filled with torture items. He's that good. We see it in Zodiac. We obviously see it with Seven and his earlier work, and he's a master of tension and suspense.
Well, I'd say you actually have that comparison in his work, because there actually is a dungeon filled with torture implements in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo at the end.
Yeah.
And the living room of the Dunn household is far more frightening than that. When we first get to that crime scene, I mean, it is just...
Yeah.
Ugh, it just feels bad from start to finish.
There are some terrifying moments in Gone Girl, especially and there's just people walking into rooms and nothing happens, but Fincher builds tension.
Yeah, man.
Alrighty, well, thank you very much for that number 2 pick, Mr. Arthur Gordon. Mr. Dalton Stewart, what's the second best film of 2014?
My number 2 of 2014 is Richard Linklater's Boyhood. Now, Dustin he said he didn't want to poo-poo the film. I think there is some poo-pooing going on of Boyhood now that the mainstream is giving it love, now that it's got Oscar nominations, now the love for it's been dialed back a little bit from the people that do these kinds of lists. And I think that's stupid. Yes, it is a big deal. A big part of why it's so notable is the achievement. But the achievement is amazing. The fact that it worked at all is astonishing. The fact that there's also a good film in there is even more astonishing, because it is a very good film, and it's a very quiet film, and it's a very soft-spoken film, and nobody gets cancer, nobody gets in a car wreck, no one gets molested. There aren't any really gigantic, life-altering traumatic events. There is a sequence probably about the second quarter of the film that is fairly traumatic and fairly violent, but it just kind of ends and life goes on.
I'm going to make an ugly comparison, so I want you to stay with me so I can get through it.
Okay.
I think the reason why Boyhood is so good, and part of is that achievement level versus what it is as a story. To me personally, is that it reminds me a lot of James Cameron's Titanic, in that it is an achievement cinematically to put together that film. The story itself, though. Okay, it's an excellent character study. I mean, there's no suspension of disbelief, or there's no sort of any suspense at all, because we know the boat sinks, right, with Titanic. But it's a really good study of a character, right? We got Rose and her journey, and I find that to be interesting. I think in the same way, it's a really good, interesting study of a character, what we have with Mason, but nothing really all that fantastic, nothing all that groundbreaking as far as narrative goes. It's good.
No, there isn't.
It's not bad. It's good, but the achievement is sort of what elevates it. And then that, for me, doesn't do as much. It would make my top 10, I think, easily, but it just didn't break into my top 5 because I don't find it all that interesting narratively.
Well, I think this, your mileage may vary. I think it's just a matter of taste, because you could say the same about Linklater's before films, which are kind of the accidental Boyhood. He didn't set out to keep checking back in with these characters every 9-10 years, and nothing happens in those films. It's just two people talking about their relationship and talking about everything. And I find those films completely engrossing and moving and just like world altering. And likewise, Boyhood is just, it's just following a little kid becoming a man, and with blemishes and all. He gets all douchey and pontificatey when he turns 16, and that's basically where we leave him, in college being even more pontificatey, because that's what we're all like. And that's the thing that I think is so strong about Boyhood, is that it is both universal and specific.
I'll take 2 of your 3 adjectives from earlier. It is engrossing and it is interesting, but for me personally, it's just not world-changing.
Fair enough, man.
So that's so I'm nearly there with you. So I don't want to be in that sort of category of people who
I don't think you are, and I'm sure it's in your top 10 if you were to expand your list at. Yeah,
totally would be.
And I want to just kind of get up on a soapbox and defend it real quick, because there does seem to be a little tiny bit of a backlash, not very severe. I think most people are still very favorable of Boyhood. They're just kind of taking the piss out of it, because it's like, well, whatever, it's 12 years. That's the only reason anybody cares about it.
And I wouldn't say that much.
Yeah.
But I would say that definitely moves it further than what it is.
It's certainly part of it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I would say for my number 2 film, and this is a really hard pick for me, and you're going to see my number 2 and my number 1, there's a great relationship between the two. But I'm going to go with Ida. for number 2, a Polish film about a nun who finds out that she's been an orphan living in the convent her whole life. She's about to take her orders, and she finds out who her real parents are. Her real parents are Jewish. This is the early 60s.
This isn't a spoiler, by the way.
Late 50s. No, not at all.
It's in the trailer.
Yeah, late 60s, early 50s, and she finds out she was Jewish, and they were in the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
And then she has to wrestle with just that whole trauma. She meets her aunt, who is not dealing well with the circumstances and the situation. She wrestles with her calling and her vocation, and also finding the graves of her family. And it's powerful. It's shot in black and white, and it is moving and disturbing and wonderful.
I'm going to get around to watching it eventually.
And it is also currently streaming on the Flicks of Nets.
It is.
So
a lot of these smaller picks are currently streaming.
And it's a film I love a lot and could not recommend more. But let's move on now. Drum roll, please. We now move to the number 1 films of 2014. Arthur Gordon, what was the best movie last year?
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, shut the fuck up.
Wait.
No, it is. That's his list.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm going to go with it.
All right, go ahead.
You know what? Screw you. Art subjective.
Yeah.
This is a movie that didn't deserve to be as good as it was. I don't think anybody expected it to be. But I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a great cast. I think it's just so enjoyable. Anybody, I think, can enjoy it and have fun with it. I think it's still it's well made. James Gunn does a great job here, and Chris Pratt's
Chris Pratt could not be more likable if he tried.
I am excited to see what the future holds for Chris Pratt, because he has just come into his own over the last couple of years. He can do drama, he can do comedy, he can do just about anything you want. And so I am excited to see what happens, and I'm excited to see what is in the future for him.
He's also very beautiful.
Yeah, he is. No more Fat Pratt. He is
jacked.
in shape.
Oh,
in
my
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, he is.
It's so funny, especially after starting to watch the last season of Parks and Rec. But
yeah,
I think this harkens back to a time we get so caught up in prestige films this time of year with everything going on that we kind of forget that in the late 70s, A New Hope had a nomination for Best Picture, and I think we've moved so far away from
that's fair.
Recognizing the movies that have critical and commercial success. And so I think there's something to be said to recognize something like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I really appreciate your comments, and I really appreciate that pick. I haven't seen Guardians yet. It's been in my I need to watch this forever, since it came out. And I think that's one thing that really intimidated me about making like a top 5 list, because I'm like, I have really crappy taste. Like, I don't have a good taste.
No.
I don't have good taste in movies. I haven't watched all of these like, oh, this is my Polish film, and this is my translated
honey.
remake of blah, blah, blah. It's Dracula, 1930s, whatever.
I must stop you now. There is no such thing as good taste or bad taste. There's just taste.
We each have a wheelhouse. And,
I'll read off the back half of my top 10 list. It's a lot less smart. My number 9 is John Wick, because it's the best balls-out action movie I've seen in probably 5 years. It just wants to be nothing but an action movie and excels at it. My number 10 is like an 8-way tie between Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain America 2.
Yeah. Captain America 2 could have easily made my list.
Yeah.
Captain America 2 is the one I actually give the slot for number 10, but it's kind of a tip of the hat to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and Edge of Tomorrow and Interstellar and all these really good blockbusters that came out this year, because there were a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And let's go ahead and take a moment to have a PSA. Your top 10, your top 5, that is your list. It's not saying that this is the end-all, be-all list. Everyone should bow before my knowledge of cinema. This is just a fun thing a fun mental exercise of, these are the films that I thought were the most important to me, the most fun, it's just your list, and it can be structured however you want it to be.
We're saying top 5, we're sort of saying best, but we're actually meaning our favorite.
Yeah.
And it's totally personal.
I wouldn't even go that far, because for me, it's not always what my favorite is. It's I wrestle with what sticks with me, what feels important. Like, all of those things are factors for me in my list, but at the end of the day, it's my list.
Yeah.
And no one else's. And you don't have... Lists are fun, Alex. You'll get there. Believe in yourself.
We're excited to hear your 2015 best films.
Oh yeah, I'll have some more things to contribute by then.
Dalton, what's your number 1 film?
My number 1 film of 2014 is Whiplash, which I have talked a lot about on this show. talking about films that stuck with me, I could not stop thinking about Whiplash, and not just because of the great performances from Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons, and it is primarily a two-man show. I mean, there's a lot of other characters in this film, but it's about them, and it is about how they affect each other, and about how this really abusive relationship kind of compels and motivates the two of these men. I want to watch it again right now. I can't stop thinking about this movie. I love it so much. I love the performances. I love what it says. I love how it's shot and how it's structured and just everything about it from top to bottom. I adore this movie. And, Boyhood very nearly was my number one because of the achievement. And because, I think it's an important and special meditation on what it is to be young. And that's something we can lose as we get older. But Whiplash is just... It's like There Will Be Blood took over Remember the Titans or some other such inspirational sports movie about the coach that pushed everyone to do better.
Yeah.
What if that coach had been Daniel Plainsview? I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's just, you make a deal with the devil to forsake all things before the altar of perfection and, excellence. And there's something really jarring and striking about that. And what sacrifice is worth being remembered and being the best in your field. That's Whiplash is my number one film in 2014.
It is a movie I'm super excited to get to see, and so I can't wait.
I can't wait to find out what you think.
Yeah, I want to catch it. I've got a friend who loves jazz, and so I'm taking him with me, and it's going
that'll
to be a
be
good
fun.
time. Yeah. So excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Dalton Stewart. My number one film.
Your number one film
is related to my own interests, and so it's the second ecclesiastical film of the year, which means to do with the church, and that is Calvary. Which is one of the McDonough brothers. It is directed brilliantly. It is shot fantastically. It's performed so well by Brendan Gleeson as a good priest who is going to be killed because some bad priests have done some bad things. I will say very little more. I want to say this. It is an acting tour de force by everyone involved, especially the actress playing Brendan's daughter. And she is absolutely brilliant. Everybody is...
He's a priest with a daughter?
Well, he was a priest who was married man. His wife died, and he went into the priesthood.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
A great many priests have daughters or sons or children of various genders.
Yeah, it's on my list. It's... I'm going to watch it pretty soon. It's on my list to catch up with.
And it is a meditation on the myth of redemptive violence, and it is suggesting something else and something different than what the rest of Hollywood cinema does. In fact, there's not a single Hollywood film in my top 5 this year. And in fact, if you don't count Great Britain as one country and Scotland and Ireland as separate places, Northern Ireland that is, I don't have any two films from the same country, and none of them are American.
Correct.
And that's not on purpose necessarily. Blue Ruin could have easily made because it does some similar things that Calvary does.
I was just thinking about that. I mean, because it definitely thinks a lot about redemptive violence.
But I do think Calvary is probably head and shoulders above as a better film.
Okay.
Not to poo-poo Blue Ruin because I love it. And Calvary could have been number 4 as easily as it was number 1. But right now, I think it's probably the best film I saw last year.
Well, that was fun. Alex, do you have any films you want to give a shout-out to?
Okay, I have shout-out films. I have to give a huge shout-out to the Lego Movie. Because I cannot remember the last time I cried in the theaters, and B, because I cried because of a children's movie, because that movie touched me. Like, I was walking to the car, and I kept crying because of how, great, I'm tearing up now. I'm just trying to articulate these thoughts. But I mean, that movie really touched me because Legos were such a part of my childhood. And then that ending was just, I mean, who expected that? Did you? I didn't. I just thought it kind of was a giant Lego commercial, but it was the most meaningful, children's movie I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And it's very funny.
You could say it's awesome.
Because everything
is awesome. Everything is awesome.
I was waiting for Arthur on that one. He wasn't on on his game.
I'm sorry.
Everything's cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome.
I saw 22 Jump Street.
Scariest version ever.
When you're living our dream.
Everything is awesome. Everything is awesome. Everything's cool. You're part of a team. Everything.
Are we going to do a Nickelback version of Everything is Awesome?
No, that was Pearl Jam.
Oh, okay.
And any other 90s rock band
Unless
after Creed.
Okay, we're done.
I remember Heath recorded a cover of himself singing "Jesus Loves You" in the style of Creed.
He's looking at you because you're editing the show.
It's still a pretty tight show. I mean, there's only like 10 minutes of edits to make.
Go ahead, Miss Bohannon.
Another film I was able to catch in the theaters, 22 Jump Street, which we have talked on during this show before. A fun movie. I did not expect to have that much fun in what many have, kind of compared to like a kind of a brainless Hollywood. But it was very, very enjoyable, and I love my buddy cop bromance movies. And I think I'm about fresh out. I mean, those are the only two that really come to mind. I just didn't get around to the cinema as much as I could have, but I know I'll have some more films for 2015.
Before we get on, though, thank you again, Miss Alexander Bohannon, for that. Let's just quickly give a few honorable mentions. Dalton, what are yours?
I had a 6 through 10. Only Lovers Left Alive, which is a really good Jim Jarmusch film that you should check out. Selma, which, I mean, at the 11th hour, got into my top 10 because it's that good. Locke, which I've already mentioned. John Wick, which I've already mentioned, and all those good blockbusters that I've already mentioned. I also want to give some love to Fury, The Grand Budapest Hotel, The Rover, and Wild. Other honorable mentions, The Guest and Under the Skin have already come up. But I really liked Wild. Was kind of surprised it didn't get a lot of attention. Really liked The Rover quite a great deal, and it was in my top 10 for quite a while. And Fury. It was well received and made money, but I don't think it got very much attention for taking the glamour out of the quote good war. So I think that's kind of awesome that it did that.
And the only other two films I wanted to mention also were The Rover and Jim Jarmusch's Only Lovers Left Alive.
Both of which we watched together.
And really, really good movies. I really like them a lot. So very, very good. I like it. Arthur, got any honorable mentions you'd like to mention?
I would just echo Alex. I'd say Lego Movie and 22 Jump Street are both really strong, and they kind of made my top 10. And so I would say check those out. And then also a little British indie film. Check out Frank.
Yes, okay.
Brendan Gleeson's son, Domhnall Gleeson.
I want to catch it.
And so look into those.
But Fassbender's face is covered.
Well, if nothing else, I think this whole conversation that we've just had about these movies, the whole conversation that we had about the interview would show us one thing crucially, is that film is more than just wasting time to go to some place with a girl, put your arm around her, and spend $37.50 on popcorn. What it is about having a good conversation and reflecting on what it means to be human. So next month, what we're going to begin is because it's the month of February and we've never done this, we're going to do romantic films. And so
I thought it was more like romantic anti-trash.
Well, romantic and sort of anti-trash.
Well, we're going to honor what we did last year because, February is the month of Oscars, so we're going to do anti-trash. But because it's the month of love, we are going to limit it to films with a romantic bent of some kind, but also do fit that anti-trash category.
And to show how sick and twisted we are, we're going to look at a sick and twisted love story, which is Adam Sandler's and Paul.
Not that one.
Not that
Paul
one.
W.S. Anderson.
Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love. And
I'm really excited to revisit that.
Good times will be had by all. I'm really, really happy to take a look at it. In the meantime, dear listener, take a look at Punch Drunk Love. Watch anything. Send us your top 5 or 10 list. We'd love to hear it.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time.
My number 2 for 2014 is Richard Linklater's Gone Girl. Motherfucker.
Do you ever feel like a plastic bag drifting through the wind, wanting to start again? Do you ever feel so paper thin, like a house of cards, one blow from caving in? Do you ever feel already buried deep, 6 feet under screams and no one seems to hear a thing? Do you know that there's still a chance for you, 'cause there's a spark in you, but you just got to ignite the light and let it shine. Just own a night like the 4th of July. Baby, you're a firework. Come on, let your colors burst. Make them go as you leave them falling down, down, down.
I keep looking at my phone and it's like right in the middle. So
Filmed over 12 years, Richard Linklater's Gone Girl looks at
12 years a slave.
That's like my number 2 last year.
Richard Linklater's 12 Years a Slave.
This is
my number 2 pick is Richard Linklater's 12 Years a Boy.
Please make that an outtake.
I'll do what I can. Yeah, that's good.
As you leave